Hi, my name is James Gurney, and this video is about painting snow. And this is a rare snow dragon seen in a parking lot in Kingston, New York. I'll show you 3 paintings. First we'll do a campfire in the snow, and then we're going to do the receding snow on a big rock, and then we're going to finish up with a cloverleaf. So come with me, let's paint snow. The only way I'm going to be able to paint in this really cold winter weather is to build a campfire and paint next to it, or I'll just paint the campfire. I'm going to be starting on a sketchbook page that's primed with kind of a buff colored casein, and then just wash in the colors with transparent washes of gouache watercolor, and then paint in the snow kind of in shadow because it's getting to be twilight, and I'll put it in there in kind of a deep blue gray, and then refine some of the flames, and then make a shaft of light coming across to highlight the fire pit and define the relief a little bit. Now, of course, we know that snow is always white, but to make it look white in the context of a painting, it often has to be darkened a bit relative to other colors, like this warm orange color of the fire. There's 3 things to think about with snow: color, light, and shape. So in this patch of snow, the light is coming in from the right. It's direct sunlight with blue skylight filling the shadows. I'm able to paint outside with watercolor and gouache because it's about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, about 20 degrees Celsius. I'm using a water-soluble colored pencil on watercolor paper that's been lightly primed with a just off-white cool color. And now I'm trying to map in the shapes of the shadows as they wrap across the uneven contours of the ground, and also the way that the snow is hollowed out by footprints and indentations in the snow. I'm using a small palette of colors: white, yellow ochre, scarlet pyrrole, and cerulean blue, watercolor and gouache. Mixing the cerulean blue and the scarlet pyrrole together won't give me a black, but it'll give me a dark enough color for now to suggest the deep shadows of the rock, which is probably the darkest color. The far trees are fairly dark. I'm just drawing with the brush right now, trying to get a sense of the textures. My palette is a metal box used for pencils, painted white with enamel. And I'm using a little cup, a backpacker's 2-ounce Nalgene cup. There's links in the description that give you all the materials. But I want to wet the surface on the paper in advance of painting that cast shadow. By wetting the surface first with clear water, I can get a softer edge on the cast shadow. If I just lightly go over areas I've already painted, it won't pick up the paint. So now that that surface is wet a little bit, I can load up the color of the shadow. Cerulean, that's going to be too blue, but I'll give it a go here. If I drop that in there, it'll soften up a bit. Now this is a shadow of a tree going across the snow in the foreground. The reason a shadow like this is blue is because the only light shining in it is from the blue of the sky. Every area of a picture is lit either by the direct sun, or by the blue of the sky, or by some reflected light. I'm using a little bit of opaque white to flatten the color, make it less grainy, and also, of course, to lighten the color. A few cast shadows of that azalea plant that's planted next to the rock. And then here we've got the plant that I'm looking at. I'm painting the spaces between some of the branches with a tip of a fairly large round brush. Even tiny details like this can be painted with a fairly big brush. And I can always come back in and paint the light lines over dark areas too, instead of painting around the light lines. My easel fits on the top of a camera tripod. It's a sketch easel that's homemade, and you can find more information about this kind of easel at the Facebook group Sketch Easel Builders. Now look at those big active curving shapes of the melt areas cutting into the snow. And then far back in the scene, very, very thin lines of the bits of snow and melt areas compressed in space, the vertical lines of the trees. So this painting, like any painting, sets up a series of abstract themes, abstract shapes. Now between those three items, color, light, and shape, which is the most important? I'd have to say it's light, because everything else follows after that. So it's the light that makes those branches warm, orange yellow, or dark brown. And it's the light that determines whether the snow is that bluish color in shadow or the warm white in the light. And now I'm going in and painting the little bits that are catching the light, trying to set up as much contrast between the very small and delicate and the big broader shapes in the scene. I'm in the parking lot of the market. I've only got a few minutes really to do this quick sketch of the freeway overpass. Very limited color, winter color. Uh-oh, a guy's parking in the way. Darn, don't do that. I'm painting in gouache over a very thin, warm acrylic underpainting. And right now I'm using a flat brush to paint that overpass of Route 209 as it crosses 9W in Kingston, New York. Because of all the road salt and dust kicked into the air, that far distance is fairly light gray, a combination of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue with some white. I can go a lot darker with the car, and the brightest light is the snow that still remains on the side of the road. So while the snow is still around, we can still paint some of it. If you're a watercolor painter, you can paint from inside your car, and it's always out there to learn about color, value, and shape.